It was the summer of 1954, and the days seemed made of gold. I remember the feel of that particular afternoon as if it were folded between the pages of my life. Faint sunlight filtering through the poplar trees, dust motes dancing in the still air, and the low hum of cicadas filling every pause. I was 12, barefoot, my toes stained green from the grass, standing at the edge of the lane that led away from our farmhouse and down toward the creek. The air was warm and carried the mingled scents of dry earth, wild mint, and my mother's bread cooling on the kitchen windowsill. I had just finished the morning's chores, feeding the hens, pouring water from the pump, and there was a rare kind of freedom pressing against my ribs. My friend Samuel was waiting at the bend, a fishing rod over his shoulder, grinning in the way that only boys with a whole summer ahead of them can. We didn't hurry. The world back then had no clock for us, only shadows that shifted and the slow turning of light. When we reached the creek, the water was so clear we could see each pebble at the bottom, rounded by years of passing currents. I remember sliding my hand into that cool ribbon, feeling the way it curled and whispered around my wrist. We caught no fish that day. The line hung limply in the current, and Samuel joked they must have taken their own holiday. But the truth is, we weren't there for fishing. We were there for the quiet, for the freedom of sitting side by side on the sun-warmed bank, kicking our bare feet in the water, and letting the wind braid itself through our hair. From somewhere far off, maybe across the next hill, came the sound of someone's laughter. It carried above the rustle of dry grass and faded almost before we could place it. Even then, I felt that strange tug in my chest, an awareness that moments like this would vanish before we knew they were precious. Samuel picked up a flat stone and skipped it across the water. His third throw made it all the way to the far bank. We cheered softly, as if we were keeping the creek's peace. When the sky deepened and the light turned the surface of the water to molten amber, we started home. The air had cooled, and from the distance came the familiar calling of my mother's voice, drifting down the lane. I remember turning once to look back at that creek, the stillness of it, and feeling as though something small and irreplaceable had been entrusted to me. The memory of a day without urgency, without loss. Years later, long after Samuel moved away and the farm changed hands, I visited that place again. The poplars were taller, the lane narrower, and the creek had shifted its bed slightly. But the same wind threaded through the grass, and somewhere in it I swore I heard the faint echo of that long-ago laughter. I stood there for a long time, hands in my pockets, letting the smell of wild mint rise around me, and I realized that while the boy I was had gone, the feeling of that day had not. It lived in the way I learned to pause, to notice, to let the present soak into me as deeply as sunlight into stone. And so each summer, when the air grows warm and the cicadas sing, I find myself filled with a quiet gratitude for creeks that still run clear, for friendships that shaped me even in their absence, and for the knowledge that some days, if you tend to them gently, will last forever in the heart.